I didn't tell this story for a long time. Almost no one believes me. They say I made it all up, that it's just childish imagination. But every time a full moon rises in the sky, I remember that forest, the voices, and the shadows between the trees. I was there. There were 6 of us, and only one came back. Me. This happened a few years ago. That evening, we were just walking near our village. There was me, Marco, my friend Ilya, Dennis, Sophia, and Nastya. The night was warm and quiet, and above the forest, a huge full moon slowly climbed into the sky. Sophia looked up and said, "Look how big it is tonight." Nastya immediately grew nervous. My grandma always said you shouldn't go into the forest during a full moon. Ilya laughed. "Oh, come on. That's just an old ghost story." We noticed a narrow path between the trees and decided to follow it, just for a little while. None of us thought we could get lost. At first, the forest felt normal, leaves crunched under our feet. Somewhere deeper in the woods, birds were singing. The air smelled of moss and damp earth, but after a while, it became too quiet. I remember that moment clearly because Sophia suddenly said, "Wait, where did the birds go?" We stopped, and only then did we realize the forest had gone completely silent. No wind, no animals, no sounds at all, as if everything alive had simply disappeared. When we decided to go back, the path was gone. We were standing among identical trees. Ilya pointed behind us. We came from that direction. But when we walked back, a few minutes later, we found ourselves standing next to the same tree. A dead one, with a strange mark carved into the bark, a circle filled with deep scratches. At first I thought someone had made it as a joke, but Nastya looked closer and quietly said, "That wasn't made with a knife." She paused. "Those are claw marks." Just then, the full moon slipped out from behind the clouds. The forest became brighter, but somehow even more frightening. Nastya whispered something I will never forget. "Don't look at the moon." We asked why, and she answered, "Because if you stare at it too long in the forest, it might show you to the things that live here." Of course we laughed, especially Ilya. He tilted his head back and stared at the moon for a few seconds. Then he frowned. "I swear something moved up there." A minute later we heard a branch snap. Then another, like someone was slowly walking between the trees. At first we thought it was just an animal, but then a shadow appeared between the trunks. It was too tall, and when it stepped into the moonlight, we saw that its arms were far too long. Nastya started screaming, and that was when Ilya disappeared. We ran. When we turned back, he was gone. Just gone. We shouted his name, but the forest answered with something else. A quiet laugh. I still remember that sound, like many voices whispering at the same time. Then Dennis disappeared. We were running through the trees when he suddenly screamed. I turned around for only a second, and I saw something tall standing behind him, and the next moment, he was gone into the darkness. Sophia was crying. Nastya kept repeating, "I told you, I told you." The shadows between the trees were getting closer. Sometimes I saw them in the corner of my eye, long arms, twisted bodies, and eyes glinting in the moonlight. When Sophia vanished, I didn't even understand how it happened. She was running beside me, and suddenly her voice just stopped. I turned around. There was only darkness. Now it was just me and Nastya. We ran into a small clearing. In the center stood a stone. On it was the same circle with the scratches. That's when I understood. It wasn't a symbol. It was a count. Nastya counted the marks. Then she whispered, "There are so many." She paused, "And there's still room for more." The shadows stepped out of the forest. There were many of them. They surrounded the clearing, watching us. One of them whispered, "You looked. The moon showed you. Now you belong to us." Nastya suddenly grabbed my hand. "Don't look at the moon," she said, "no matter what happens." And then she ran. The shadows rushed after her. I heard her scream, then nothing. I was standing alone in the clearing. And I remember only one thing. I kept staring at the ground. I never raised my head. I never looked at the moon, even when I heard footsteps beside me, even when something stood very close. I just kept looking down. When I finally lifted my head, the sun was rising. The forest was empty. As if nothing had happened, I found my way back. But ever since that night, whenever a full moon appears in the sky, I feel like the shadows near the trees are moving. And sometimes I hear whispers, the same ones. So if you ever find yourself in a forest and you see a full moon above its
So if you ever find yourself in a forest and you see a full moon above the trees, don't look at it because the moon might show you to the ones waiting in the dark, and then you may never come back, just like my friends.
I thought it was over that night. I reached the village at dawn, dirty, scratched, barely able to stand. The adults found me near the road. They kept asking the same question. Where are the others? I tried to explain. About the forest, about the shadows, about the things that appear when the full moon rises. But no one believed me. They said we must have gotten lost, that the others were probably still somewhere in the woods. That day, a lot of people went searching for them. They combed through the entire forest. All they found were our footprints and an old clearing, the same one with the stone in the center. One of the men who joined the search later told me about it. He said there was a strange mark on the stone, a circle, and inside it, scratches. He swore that among the old marks there were 5 new ones. Days passed, then weeks. Eventually the search stopped. Everyone decided that my friends had died somewhere in the forest, but I knew what had really happened. And the worst part was, sometimes at night I could hear their voices. At first I thought they were just dreams. I would wake up in the middle of the night and it felt like someone was whispering beneath my window. Quiet, almost too quiet to hear. Marco, Marco, come outside. One night I even heard Nastia's voice. She whispered, "Look at the moon." I closed the curtains, and from that moment on, I never looked at the night sky again, not even by accident, not even for a second, because I remembered what she said, "Don't look at the moon." But a month later, the full moon returned. That night, I woke up because of a strange sound. Something was scratching against the window. I lay in bed completely still. The sound came again, slow, a long scrape against the glass. Very slowly, I turned my head, and I saw a silhouette by the window. It was standing outside, tall, completely still. Its arms were far too long, and its fingers slowly dragged across the glass. I didn't raise my eyes. I stared only at the floor. Then I heard the whisper again, the same voices. "You looked. The moon showed you. We remember." My heart was beating so loudly I thought they would hear it. Then another voice spoke, quieter, sad. "Marco." I recognized it. It was Sophia. For a moment, I wanted to look up. I wanted to see, to be sure, but then I remembered Nastia's words. So I stayed where I was, staring at the floor. After a few minutes, the sound stopped. And when I finally dared to lift my eyes, the window was empty, but long scratches remained on the glass, just like the ones on the stone in the forest. That was the day I understood something. Whatever lives in that forest doesn't always stay there, especially when the moon is full. And sometimes, when the night's very quiet, I hear the whisper again. It comes with the moonlight. Always the same sentence. Nothing is new beneath the moon. So if one night you hear something quietly scratching at your window, don't go near it. And no matter what happens, don't look at the moon, because if it shows you to them, they might come for you.
I tried to move on with my life. Months passed, then almost a year. But every time the full moon appeared in the sky, the same things happened again. A quiet whisper beneath my window, footsteps in the yard, and sometimes voices. At first, I thought I was going insane, but one night I heard a different voice, soft, very familiar. "Marco?" I recognized it instantly. "Nastia." I froze in the darkness. "Marco," she whispered again. "You have to come back." My heart began to pound. "Why?" I whispered. For a few seconds there was silence, then she answered, "Because they won't let you go." That night I barely slept, and I realized something. As long as I lived near that forest, they would keep coming. So I decided to do the one thing I feared the most: go back. I returned to the forest the very next night. The full moon hung above the trees again, just like it had that night. The forest looked exactly the same. The same dark trees, the same silence. as if the entire year had never passed. I walked slowly, carefully, trying not to look at the sky. After some time, I reached the clearing. The stone was still there in the center. I stepped closer, and what I saw made my blood run cold. The scratches inside the circle. There were more of them, more than I remembered, as if during that year, the forest had taken someone else. Then I heard footsteps, slow, heavy. I knew they had come. Shadows began to appear between the trees, tall, twisted, more and more of them. One voice whispered, "You returned." Another voice followed, "The moon showed you again." I kept my eyes on the ground. I didn't look up, not once. Then I heard another voice. Quiet. "Nastia. Marco, listen to me." "Where are you?" I whispered. "Close," she replied. Her voice sounded strange, as if she was standing among them. "Marco," she said, "as long as you don't look at the moon, they cannot take you." My heart was racing. Then what should I do? There was silence for a moment. Then she whispered, "Leave, and never come back." I slowly began to step backward. The shadows moved around me. I could feel them nearby, too close. But I never raised my head, not even once. When I finally stepped out of the forest, the sky was already beginning to brighten, and the full moon slowly disappeared behind the clouds. Since that night, I have never returned to that forest. And even now, when the full moon rises in the sky, sometimes I still hear whispers in the wind, and one voice among them, Nastia's. So if you ever find yourself in a forest at night, and a full moon appears above the trees, remember one rule. Don't look at it, because sometimes the moon shows people to the ones waiting in the dark.